You asked for it. I don't know why you asked for it, but you did. The story of one incel with incredible abs, fighting zombies whose narrative relevance drifts further and further away as we, the audience, are tasked with trying to untangle a mystifying and bewildering story told by fiction's least reliable narrator. It's Dellamorte Dellamore. There are certain rhythms one gets used to in life. There are certain movies that get requested a lot for me to cover on this channel, which is called Scaredy Cats. Hello. It's just inevitable, right? Given who I am and the way I behave, whenever anyone else sees a wet puppet in a movie, they're gonna send me an email about it, and I accept that. That's the life I've built for myself. Time and again, people will take it upon themselves to inform me, of the movie Terror Vision. I'm aware of Terror Vision, and if you know anything about me, it is deeply insulting to assume otherwise. But for some reason that is entirely inscrutable to me, the most requested movie I have not yet covered on this channel is Dellamorte Dellamore, or Cemetery Man if you're nasty. Couldn't tell you why. It's not the type of movie that has a lot of mass appeal. Given the title, Cemetery Man, you'd be forgiven for thinking this is the newest Marvel superhero. A man with all the powers of a cemetery, and maybe Deadpool is going to show up and he's going to make his jokes like, is that a tombstone or is it my penis? I'm Deadpool, chimichanga, that kind of stuff. Well, imagine my surprise when it turned out to be a 1994 Italian-French-German surrealist horror comedy based on a novel of the same name, which I guess I probably should have seen coming because I had already watched the movie many years ago. I wrote that joke, but actually, come to think of it, this is sort of a comic book movie in that it's also considered a loose adaptation of the Italian comic Dylan Dog, which it shouldn't be considered because it isn't. They're both inspired by the same source material, which is Rupert Everett's abs. Said abs star as the titular Dellamorte, Francesco Dellamorte, and a bit of a Dellamore if you don't mind me saying so. He's the sexy groundskeeper at a sexy cemetery where the dead sometimes come back to life, but that's not as sexy as you'd think, and also not as big of a deal as you might expect. Because nothing's a big deal to Dellamorte. He's depressed, he's lonely, he's blasé about everything to the point of absurdity. Dellamorte is bored with life, not really interested in figuring out how or why these things are happening to him. At the point we start the movie, this has already become routine for him. It's a pain in the ass, sure, but it's just part of his day, right? Like, he's not frightened or disturbed by the zombies. It's just something he has to do, a boring part of his boring job. Something you're just gonna have to accept about this movie is that we're not just following the main character's story. The whole movie is filtered through his bizarre, misanthropic, delusional point of view. It's never made explicit, it's never made textual, but trust me when I say it is the only way to read this movie. It is not subtle. This movie is many things, thousands of things. One thing it's never is subtle. Honestly, part of the reason I think that they made sure to show you how sexy his muscles are like right away was to convey that the character sees himself all cool and sexy like he's the second sexiest guy in a Bridget Jones movie. Yeah, I said it. Come at me, Bridget Jones fans. What are you gonna do? My mom? Why would he look like that? Why would anyone look like that? I know what you're saying, all right? He digs graves all day. Sure, he should be muscly. I agree. But should he be like 6% body fat? I don't think so. That's not what a gravedigger looks like. This is what a gravedigger looks like. So we see this cool, kind of badass anime twink, but Dellamorte's habits and personality conflict with that presentation. In fact, he's a weird guy. He likes to read old phone books for some reason, and he struggles with the world's easiest 3D puzzle. Mainly, he mopes around and talks about how lonely he is, and how he knows more dead people than alive people, boo-hoo. He's shitty to everyone he cares about, which, to be fair, is only like 2 people, and he doesn't really seem to realize he's doing it half the time. He's surly, confrontational, and deeply pathetic. It's implied that he's illiterate, something that I don't think a person should be ashamed of in real life, but he attempts to cover up, so it seems like he's ashamed of it. He dropped out of high school, he can't find another job, and everywhere he goes, people point and laugh. Some local youths tease him for being impotent, and he claims to have started the rumor that he's impotent himself for some reason, but I think it's more likely that they just got under his skin a little. Everything we see from him feels like a facade, a self-insert OC into the fanfiction he's created about his own life. How much of the story is literally happening and how much of it is just Dellamorte's imagination is an open question. A deliberately open question, mind you, one that you won't really like the movie very much if you're obsessed with trying to answer, because it defies explanation. It rejects narrative consistency. Sometimes the zombies can talk. Sometimes they're mindless, bitey guys. Sometimes they come back right away. Sometimes they come back only after 7 days. On that specific day, they come back. Sometimes they come back because they saw you fucking their wife. It's all possible. No rules, just right when you're here, your family Olive Garden. Characters often behave in strange, unpredictable ways, and you just gotta roll with it. You just kind of have to accept that that's what the movie's doing now. Just trust that the movie knows what it's doing and has a reason for doing it. I understand that that type of approach might not work for everyone. Under most circumstances, I don't think it would work for me. But Dellamorte Dellamore earns my trust by always making sure to reward my faith in it with some of the coolest imagery I have ever seen in a movie. Unbelievably bonkers cool shit. Let me just show, I'm just gonna show you some out of context shots from this movie. Just take a little peep at this with your little pervert eyes. And that's just a little taste. It's impossible to overstate how beautiful this movie looks. It's jam-packed with gorgeous sets, incredible compositions, and shot after shot that just make you want to freeze frame and order a print. It might be one of the most beautiful looking movies I've ever seen. Just look at this dummy head. It never stops being this beautiful. It's crazy. The music paired with these visuals, however, leaves a little to be desired. And I don't normally talk about the music in a movie. I don't really notice it. I'm not really a music guy. And as long as the music is serviceable, it's like I don't pay attention. That's my blind spot, right? In this one I noticed. I mean, come on, this is an Italian horror movie. I'm sorry, was Goblin busy that weekend? I'm kind of dancing around the story of the movie because, like, they don't matter. It's fine. A little peek behind the curtain, right? So whenever I release a Scaredy Cats video, there's an internal debate I have to have with myself. Do I make a normal review like I'm doing now, or do I review the movie while I recap the story so that my audience can contextualize my opinions even if they haven't seen the movie? A lot of people don't like the latter approach, and I understand why, because a lazy video maker would just be recapping a movie that you could, in theory, go watch on your own, and thus delivering a worse version of a work of art which already existed. I understand that objection. There's a lot of that type of shit on YouTube, where like an AI voice just tells you what happened in a movie and gets a lot of the details wrong. Still, I find myself taking that approach because it is the simplest way to talk about a movie. And I tend to give my audience enough credit to know that me recapping a movie is deliberately a different experience to watching it yourself. Because like, I say silly words, I say bazinga, I make fart jokes and Photoshop all the needles into sausages and all that fun stuff. It should be self-evident that it feels different to watch a movie than to listen to some sloppy dumpo tell you what happened. I could not take that approach with Dellamorte Dellamore if I wanted. I mean, I could, sure. I could just recap the movie. In theory, nothing's stopping me from doing it. There's no law against it. But if I told you beat for beat what happened in the movie, you would walk away with a very wrong impression. Because the subject matter and tone are at such odds that it can be difficult to reconcile without experiencing them. Just a quick content warning, I'm about to discuss some elements of sexual violence and also sexually motivated violence, so skip to the time code on screen if that's likely to upset you. Throughout the movie, Dellamorte keeps getting infatuated with various unnamed women, all of whom he perceives as having the exact same face. All women are just interchangeable objects to him, you see. And they all meet gruesome fates, which we are not invited to sympathize with them about because it's told from his point of view. One, he accidentally murders, another, he very intentionally murders, and the third is raped by the mayor, but she enjoys it, so she decides she's going to marry the mayor, her rapist. which is gross, of course. You don't need me to tell you that that's gross. Gross, guys. But keep in mind, we are seeing this from the perspective of the creepy incel mass-murdering main character. He had previously attempted to literally castrate himself for this woman in the most Freudian metaphor of all time, only to have her decide that she wants to be with someone else and they would just be friends. We're just friends. My guy? It's not hard to connect the dots that he's inventing a story that makes himself feel better about a woman he's infatuated with choosing another man over him. Choosing, in fact, a literal rapist, while he, a nice guy, who was willing to cut his dick off, gets friend-zoned. Boy, girls just like jerks, not nice guys who'll cut off their dicks like me. And the movie is also very quick to show you that the chemical castration he settled for when the doctor refused to chop his wiener off did not work, and he can still do sex good. So like, if I just described those events to you, you would walk away thinking this was some kind of sleazy, mindless exploitation movie. You'd think that this was a power fantasy that glorifies violence against women. But instead, it's a thoughtful commentary on the inherent misogyny of that kind of power fantasy. Dellamorte is the one telling the story. Of course he makes himself look cool and stoic and good at fucking while he does all of this horrible stuff. Of course he plays up how devoted he is, how it's not about sex for him. In fact, he'd cut off his dick if the woman he loved asked him to. That's how devoted he is. And even then he can't get laid, all because all women want is evil men, or some of them are lying whores out to steal your money. You're plainly not going to sympathize with him, even if the story seems on its face to be trying to manipulate you into doing so. At least I hope you're not. I don't know. If you do sympathize with him, that might be something you want to talk through with a profesh. Can't help you there. Woof. The story, such as it is more like a series of semi-comedic shorts than anything. And I say comedic because that's the best fit. But even that is kind of not giving you the whole picture. You're not going to be laughing out loud, giggling, guffawing, etc. It's just, the whole movie is absurd. Everything is heightened. Everything is pushed just a little bit past the point where you could take it seriously. You're playing along with it, not suspending your disbelief. To that end, a lot of shit just kind of happens. Like sure, yeah, it all builds to something eventually, but moment to moment, it can feel a little scattered. One minute, they're fighting off an invasion of zombie Boy Scouts. The next, Dellamorte's assistant is vomiting on the mayor's daughter, and she's surprisingly cool with it. Then her severed head falls in love with his assistant, but her dad doesn't approve. But then death itself has a conversation with Dellamorte, and then Dellamorte just starts indiscriminately shooting people for no real reason. And it's just kind of stuff that happens. But actually, let's just back up here for a second because I don't want to brush past this. Let us discuss Nagi, the best character in the movie. He's just a sweet little guy, and he's such a likable presence, and he eats a lot of spaghetti. And if you're looking for scenes of a man just eating heaping piles of spaghetti, you need look no further. Every time he got another plate, I was jumping up and down in my chair because I knew my man was about to start noodle maxing. What's Nyagi's deal, you might be asking? Well, he's Curly from the Three Stooges, except he can't talk, or maybe he can. It's not really clear. It could be just how Dellamorte sees him, or maybe he literally can only say nya like a Pokemon, like he can only say part of his name like a Pokemon. Hard to say, doesn't matter. He's a vibe. Everything in this movie is just vibes. Stop thinking, start vibing. The movie exists in this weird middle ground because like artsy-fartsy types might turn up their noses at its genre conventions, while genre fans might be frustrated by its meandering and unstructured narrative. If you can keep an open mind and not get hung up on some of the stranger details, it is a very rewarding watch. There's really nothing else like it. Like, this is a singular movie. There's very little to compare it to. I guess it's kind of like a reverse David Lynch movie, right? Because like where David Lynch finds horror in the mundane, this movie finds the mundane in horror. Is that true of David Lynch? I don't know. Not really familiar with David Lynch's work, but I sounded confident when I said it, so you probably believed me. You probably thought it was profound. It's just bullshit. I can turn it on whenever I want. In any case, characters aren't frightened by the ghosts and ghouls they encounter. They're not really even all that curious about them. It's just a thing they see, or don't. Who knows if any of this is actually happening? They don't react to anything like you might expect. Why would they react to a baghoul with fear? And I know it's cliche to call a movie dreamlike, but like, how else are you going to describe this shit? The way the logic ebbs and flows throughout the story, the hazy impressionistic setting, the absurd gonzo ending that, despite being very clearly foreshadowed early on, still feels like it comes out of absolutely nowhere. And if you're anything like me, will leave you just completely dumbstruck trying to interpret. I know I'm making it sound impenetrable. It's not. There's a lot on the surface to enjoy. It's very abstract and bizarre, and if you're expecting something straightforward, you're gonna lose your whole brain. But you know what? Fuck it. Just go. You should watch Dellamorte Dellamore. You might not like it, but if you regret the time you spent watching it, you need to broaden your horizons a little. It is a work of art worth experiencing, but I can in no way prepare you for what that experience is going to feel like. Other than confusing, I guess. It's going to be a little confusing. Roll with it. You don't need to understand every movie you see. Sometimes a movie's just a movie. Somebody's going to nibble on your shoulders. Not a big deal. So there you go. I recommend it. I heretofore officially recommend the movie. Put that on the cover. Scaredy Cats recommended. Before I leave you and return to my eternal slumber, a couple housekeeping notes. Firstly, I didn't charge patrons last month. Didn't feel right about charging people if I didn't put up a video that month. Barely put up a video this month, so still don't feel great about it. Thank you for sticking with me. I know, I'm just so principled. You should probably form a parasocial relationship with me if you haven't already. And since I haven't been as consistent as I should be on this channel, I'm going to be doing a channel update and AMA next month. So if you have cues, send them on over. I'll give you some A's. You love A's. Also, I don't say this a lot, but like, the whole reason I rewatched this movie and talked about it today is because people kept asking me to. So, are there movies you'd like to see me talk about? Tell me. Don't keep it a secret. I gotta know. Thanks again to my patrons from, well, normally this is the part where I would say last month, but I guess the month before last. I'll get better, I promise. In particular, I'd like to thank Cooper Holmes, Joe McClory, Liz Widow, Maston Ginger, James Garford, C.H. Phillips, Gideon, Devin Kaler, Andrew Roger, and Spooky Heather Sylvia. And I, Bobby Duke, the star of the channel, would like to thank the following people who's also the stars of the channel. We got Connor Patrick Griffin, Chuckleberry Finn, Jay Torney, Rachel Rat, Kato Moore, Carpad, Josh Manes, Hyla Tracy, Louisa Brito, and Jesse.